personally hope it doesn't break up any further. But you never know. I would like to read from Valparaiso also a poem called Antikythera, and I'll explain a little bit about this. I went on a voyage on the Celtic Explorer, the Marine Research Ship, several years back, and most of this book, about the centre of this book, was written, begun on the ship as it happens, finished in Paris, which is a good plan. I'll try and do it again sometime. And Ireland was appalling at the time because it had become very peculiar, and I found it difficult to live there actually. So it was great to get away, but I do also appear to be drawn back there all the time. So, in about 1901, I think, there was a wreck discovered off the island of Antikythera, off Greece, the Greek island of Antikythera. Oliver, I'm probably saying this all wrong. How do you pronounce it? Is it? It is, thank you. And this, in this wreck were these extraordinary statues, beautiful bronze, marble, and so on, beautiful glass objects. Please come and sit. There are chairs here. But in among them was this very uninteresting looking piece of crushed wood, which was left aside for several years. And inside that was this amazing device, which is an analog computer really. And they've now dated it. I had to check this up because they're constantly changing the dating, they're pushing it further back. They've now dated this mechanism at about 205 BC. It was very sophisticated, and they gradually took it apart carefully and discovered how complex it was with all sorts of cogs and wheels. Beautiful looking object. And apparently that level of sophistication wasn't reached again after that classical knowledge was lost until about the 15th century or 14th century. The interesting thing, my point, the reason I wrote the poem, apart from the fascination with the device itself and its sea wrecks, which I've always been very interested in, not with what's on top of the ocean, but what's under the ocean. And in the Irish mythology, in the old Irish poems and so on, they're always as interested in the word under the ocean, both figuratively, metaphorically and otherwise, as the word above it. But because when I looked into it, this Antikythera device was decided by, I think, somebody at the University of Cambridge to be more important than the Mona Lisa. However you make that decision. But the thing is, it was a scientific, absolute goldmine, if you like, for scientists and archaeologists. And so, of course, what did they do? They fought over it. The guy who found it was probably a literate pearl diver, and nowhere could I find his name. So this is a sort of homage. And at the last line, you'll see a little echo, a very definite homage to Yeats, the second poem of Yeats's as well. Antikythera, and this is purely imaginary, how I imagine it might have been. He hung over the side, a cigarette discarded, a chain with its crucified Christ flashing in the sun, and blessed himself. His breath opened, oh, and again, oh, took in the whole element and time and all the subatomic particles, took them into his chest and dived. He found the old half-rotted star club, all bronze and green and verdigris. Then he saw the women coming at him like ghosts, falling towards him out of the wreck with their strange virginity, and dropped it. By the time he reached the surface, he was gabbling, they said, about bodies, said it with their kind's terror of superstition. Flattened like an old watch dumped, its secrets stayed buried in a lost codex long after the pearl diver found it. teeth at an angle, grinning at the moon. Then they got it all wrong and squabbled like bankers over their interpretations. They say its clock was set at Libra, which may mean nothing, though blind chance did not design the cogs. Chance or some rival fleet sank the ship. Scientists disputed its purpose, but it was into the sponge diver's arms the beautiful dead women fell. It was he found the treasure, because he was down there, among the old irons, old bottles, poking around where it all starts, with the sea-crazed, star-hungry, sea-crossed. Come in, please.
Come on in, everybody. There's 3 seats here as well. There's 3 seats over here.
So I move now to Playing the Octopus, and I think I might start with the title poem of Playing the Octopus. That will save me explaining where the title comes from. And it's for the artist Greenberg, because he's the one that told me the story, and it was his son that features as the baby in the poem, who is now a father himself. People sometimes get drunk on the music. One early morning after the night before, not having finished, the story goes that when a baby started crying, his father picked him up, tucked his bellows under his elbow, and started playing him. Along with 2 fiddles, a tin whistle, and the piper who tuned into the baby's cries for the walls of Limerick. When the baby, sick of the noise, stopped, they were halfway through Shoe the Donkey, and seeing that it did no harm, swung into a storm of jigs. The baby squawking, saddled the pony. That boy is a slave now to fiddle, harp, melodeon. Somehow, in all those tunes, he learned to listen for his own note. He lives on inland water, where sound, whether the listener hears it or not, is magnified and separate, and moves over the air like a sky goat's bleat. He avoids the pipes. He has his reasons. He has heard the story of the octopus who was locked into a room for a week to practice. When they let him out, the pipes had learned to play the octopus. The thing about musicians is they respond to glory. So that's why it's called Uillin's the Uillin Pipes. The Uillin is an elbow in Irish. And those strange titles are the titles of well-known traditional tunes. And I think, since Joseph mentioned it from a review, there's a song called Bodhi Nile Medium. Does anybody here knows Irish songs? Oh, well done. Every child in Ireland knows this song, because they have to learn it in school. But every child in the 26 counties. And it's for a Seamus singer, Lillis Nolan, who is associated with the island of Tory, which is off northwest Donegal. We'll take off for Tory in the ship of fools, with the mast half cut, spools of carnival bulbs lit, Rory, Rory at the helm, your only man in a storm. Tory has the mandate of song. On a rock in the middle of the ocean we'll mock dead autumn and sing through the worst winter can throw at us. But a sock in the laments, Bodhi Nile will take us to Tory. We'll be sure of a welcome if we keep in tune. There's a king and a lifeboat. There's a dog that swims with a dolphin. The Republic of Tory is what's left. I'll go back and read 2 fairly short poems from Valparaiso because I'm in a chapel. And you'll find out why when I read them. I should explain that the first one is about a painting by Eugene Delacroix which is in some painting, and it's called Jacob Wrestling the Angel. There's a couple of books written about the painting I discovered after I became interested in it. And it makes you wonder, is all I can say. I suppose it's wrestling about faith, but it's worth looking up. Found it. Yes. It's called, I've called this Israel because that was the name of the angel. It's me, talking to you after all this time, driven out to the green limit of the firs to ask, before the bright absence flows again, an empty armful of light glistening, why you sent the devil my way, so his fur singed by coals so early. He drove me into the arms of the angel, in every way more dangerous, and this horse I was condemned to ride, his red tongue, his teeth open like the jaws of death, rides me, having no pity. The poet Rilke was refused to go for psychoanalysis because he said if they banish the angels, they might banish the demons as well. If they banish the demons, they might banish the angels as well. And the other one I read from this is called Faith. And this is more faith about faith in your work, I suppose, than anything, but you can read it either way. Faith. It has nothing to do with belief. Song comes when the world is empty, breath tight. The mouth opens to swallow the sky. Song rises, furnishes trees, a table, some sorrows for summer, or the notion of it. You see the tail ponds, and though you hear nothing, taste the runoff, upsides bitter on the tongue, silvering the line. Violets invade. Love does little that is asked of it, but this. It drives the reluctant to the altar, to their knees, lights candles, remembers old postures of prayer, the fingers' lovely chapel, eyes lifting, saying, please. And now I'm going to read a few poems from Playing the Octopus again, which were either written or begun when I was here in Villanova. And I would like to read these couple of poems. I want to thank everybody, first of all, thank Joseph for inviting me again, to thank Wendy, who I've driven demented, I would say, with because I'm so bad at paperwork and arrangements. And really, thank you very much. And Joseph, it's fantastic to have you and to see the programme going from strength to strength. And I want to read them for Kathy and Emma, who are great friends from over here, who did so much to help us get around, get to know the place, and basically have fun. So I'll start with first visit to Penn's Landing. You all know where Penn's Landing is. But I didn't know anything about this landscape, and I found it's very different from where I grew up. Where I grew up has hills, the sea, and lakes, all within what you would consider very close, close to one another. And there's a constant wind, and it's rarely iced up like it is here. So I was looking at this place and trying to figure it out, and this is the poem that came from it. Because I'm so used to the sea, I get panicky if I can't see it. There's been no sea for months, so the river, a slow tide of gunmetal, provides a link to 200 miles away and the main coast, with its rock pools and a mermaid gathering barnacles and Cal. Sorry, I should say, I'm a great fan of Robert Lowe's, and that's the reference to Robert Lowe. And Cal on his legacy, I want them to say I was a heartbreaker. A mermaid with hands torn from the rough shells. Trouble from allergies is de rigueur here. And it could be that the silver in her ring with its single black stone is laced with zinc. The water is icy, too cold, and it stings but its sting is glorious, and it strikes me as a kind of explanation for the America that is Protestant and white, or the start of one. A training ship, the Gazella, fished for cod in Newfoundland and the cold shores of Greenland. And in the heat of New Orleans, she started a movie with vampires on board. The river is flat, wide, undammed. And why it should warm me with this small truth in winter, with the taste of hard-won bacalhau, and the drink still standing in a bar in New Orleans, unclaimed as the future, is how life's promises reward us for keeping faith, with all the atoms whirling in a word, with the lights in spinning tops. It's why we keep going to the circus with our high wire acts, this chance meeting with the elements of our own makeup floating free. Come in, please.
But there's 3 seats right up here saved for you.
It's all right.
No, thanks.
This is called Natives, and again, it's about an attempt to make some kind of connection with the place. And of course, I realised that when I looked at a landscape as utterly powerful as this, that not even the levels of industrialisation could hide it. And all of the, you know, I'm interested in the inhabited landscape, not the uninhabited one. And something was missing for me. And it was what these places must have been called in the original language. English is making strange again, contrary as a 2-year silence. Irish sticks its tongue out in hard, necessary syllables that spit and hiss and consonants like shards of nice. English is not the tool for this, but English is what I have. This is no way to map this frozen place. The sharp light, cars like barges, the flat, lean grant of William Penn's tamed share, rearing suddenly up 100 floors vertical, but mapping is not what I am at, not sapping, but naming. Where is the voice of the Indian? I hear it in the wind, feel it flinch the skin, strip the wires, buckle the ground under the asphalt. The howl of America grown distant, the tense ghosts and street corner faces. A fox cried last night outside our window, for a mate, for food, the native for no. And this is called the ghost chant. What it is to be a people that lived so lightly on the land, their own families named each of them for the simple traits they carried or would inherit as gifts on becoming grown, to grow up young. What it must be to lose an entire continent to men who traded in baubles and lies, who flourished under false names, and then to see your trails cobwebbed in the moonlight, pale, crossed by ghost caravans. They were stitched between mountains, across the river we call Delaware, night raiders, ghost encampments. What I'm hunting is the syllables of old names. I hear their echoes in the chant, electrifying the body, drumming, singing the wolf's story. And of course, there's an image there to rise up the body electric. And I'll finish this section with, and you might want to ask a few questions of my comments then before I finish up, if you wish, on showing the dead at Villanova. Now, the film The Dead was one of the things I did when I was here. I taught the Tron, and I taught various things, and I was very lucky to have a fantastic group of students, and one of whom I'm delighted to say is here, because it gives me the chance to read the poem with his name in it. There were a couple of other names as well, and I chose the names in part to fill with the line, but not only that. To fit with the line, I would have liked to have named at least 4 more. However, they know who they are. And it was about teaching. I love teaching, and it's about, this really is a poem about teaching. I've written probably 2 poems about teaching. Another one is about seeing a crowd of kids up at the Abbey watching Hamlet. And text, but I haven't got it here. So. You're safe. So it's James Joyce's Story of the Dead, and we looked at it, at the book and the movie. But what we did was the film by John Huston, which was his last film, and the great, I think, his masterpiece in a way, which is a kind of poem of a film, really. And hi, Emer.
Hey, Emer, there's a seat right up here for you.
And it's just about the delight of watching people make their own discoveries and decisions about something. People a lot younger than you. It seems now I will always recall their faces and remember each name. Elizabeth, Julia, Devon, Oliver with his chalk and cheese grandfathers, names slightly formal like the film. The young women despised Gabriel at first. He was, said one, self-centered and worse, lacking in emotional intelligence. Mr. Brown was creepy, the aunts feisty and frail. A high-end dinner party, they said. I stopped the action halfway and asked them to guess the second half. All things possible, all different. Next class, they were, they said, surprised. Of the film, their reviews were mixed. The boy concentrated on technical terms, the girls on Greta, thrown on the bed. They liked Gabriel more now, her less. I told them Houston was on oxygen. When it came to the snow, the formal journey across the central plain, their faces had the look of Greta on the stairs. They were more impressed with Joyce's story, the sharp twist of the boy's death, than the movie. I wanted to say, don't look back. Stay here, where west means hope, not death. Thank the students for that poem. I'll read a poem now about Sweeney, whom I'm very interested in. Shamsini has done a masterly version of Sweeney, which I suppose it's close to an epic. If there are any scholars here, they can argue it now, but for general description, it is close to an epic in Irish, of course. And it's generally seen to be someone who doesn't fit, that's for sure. The basic story is that Sweeney went mad because he was cursed by the saint, because he saw this new religion coming, taking his power and his world, and it was alien to him.
So it was like one of the worst.
And he heard the church bell, and he saw the monk with his altar, and he took the psalter, the holy book, a very precious thing then especially, and he threw it into the lake. And the priest, the saint, cursed him. And from then on he used to wander like a bird, mad. But madness has a place in all the classics, as you know, in the Greek classics as well as the Irish ones. So this is just a couple of Sweeney poems. By the way, I might read a little a poem later that refers to this as well. It comes on him and ebbs as the power of the goddess rose and fell in Achilles on waves of madness. The severing of mind and magic when power shifts, exacts new tributes. He thinks the new regime spreads panic. Do you want to come in, please? If you're coming in, please feel welcome. The severing of mind and magic when power shifts, exacts new tributes. He thinks the new regime spreads panic. When the curse worked in him and pain feathered his skin, he did not in his agony put to sea where he is easy, or when he dived into the salt, the blue glass, green glass, clear-eyed wash of it, he didn't stay. He still craves human company. He's back again, perching thin-shanked in the trees, roosting out on the islands in full flight like a cock pheasant ragged from battle, a splendid Egypt. His feathers are grey, dragging and tarrying from the rubbish tips. The madness in full black fire burning up his nights, the whirligig sky mocking and starry. Watching him, eyes red from pain, and the pitiful bare shanks, I know torment. This is tattered man. I know he is afraid of the dank lake he would fly to in the spring, cycling the air wildly to get ahead of what preys on him, and crying hoarse prayers into the void. And somehow he has not ended it. Sweeney Agonistes, the beautiful, Sweeney Redivivus, the magnificent old pagan, waiting for a miracle. So, that's Sweeney. I'll read a poem about home. It's called Show Day. I come from an area called Connemara, which in the west of the country, which has sort of become a bit of a brand name, really, for the tourist board, which means the rest of us, of course, can't afford to live there. And Show Day is the horse show, and the horse show took place the first Thursday or the second Thursday, I can no longer remember, of every. Horses are associated with August all along the west coast of Ireland because of the god Lugh. So there were, traditionally there used to be horse races just out on the beach, on the strand, and some of them are brought back again. And when I was a child, that was still happening, and it was fantastic. But this is a horse show, which is a very big event, and there's a lot of money involved because buying and selling of Connemara ponies goes on, and it's got bigger and bigger as time has gone on. And anyway, this is called Show Day, which is not about the show day, it's about something else. These Connemara ponies, you see them everywhere, like daisies, you know, they're all over the place. Everyone has a few. There are bright stars, the odd comet, night airplanes crisscross this vast parish. They tell the time. A blue shark breaks the sky over the lake, it rains. Below the gable, white horses fan out. They're at home, ploughing under the moon. Each knows his own name and speaks it in a language half mine. Last night they broke cover, for I surprised them. Horses, after all, sensed danger. Waking from a dream, I went to the window. They were standing close to the house, all facing south. They stared, then ran without a sound, manes streaming to race or catch the tide. These things are not unheard of here, where even the horses immigrate. At such junctures, worlds ratchet, directions change. Traffic streams through space. People come back for a look, bothered by what they left, which is dearer to them than a bushel of science and all the Wild West spindrift on TV. They miss their boats, the smell of rotting seaweed, the sight of horses. The horses are spreading in drifts. They grow freely as if the rock spawned them, the last locals, unendangered, idled, wedded to the sea. One of the great ironies is that while the horses are thriving, the locals are nearly all in China, in America, in Canada, wherever. I'll read maybe two more, Joseph.
No, I'm over here.
And then we're sorry. Also, I'm blind without my glasses. This refers back to the soldier that was thrown into the lake. And there was a miracle, of course, and the little otter took it in his teeth, and Big Eyes, up he comes with it between his teeth, and the saint is delighted with him, and he gets the main part. But this is called the rat. Ronan was the saint, by the way, because rats don't get to starve. I am hunted, hated, feared. They revile my children, set cats and small dogs to torture me. I too am born. I too live and do little harm. I only eat what is left. They hate me because I am the late night traffic in their sleeping heads. I am a child of the river and lake. Not even the monk gave me one good deed. He let the otter rescue the holy soldier for Ronan. I could have done that. They sent me out among the junkies and rubbish sacks, into the jail cells. I will be here when the seas rise and cover their carcasses. There will be ravens feasting on the next hill, hating, still hating. I wanted none of it, their curses, or their loves, or their bloody gods. And I finish with a poem called Harvest, which there's nothing to explain, I think, really. Except that I suppose it would put me, I was thinking a lot about Elizabeth Bishop at the time, and in particular at the fish houses, some of you will know. And I was trying to find a way about writing about inland water, because we were living a little bit in that. Gerard, which is a very lovely place. And there's a river and a waterfall where you can see the salmon jumping all the time. The Cantablo is those little wonderful little Mexican, or at least perhaps all over Latin America, where you see little prayers written on tin, often with wonderful illustrations. In this light, it's all tin Cantablos, a pewter vase out of still light with pigeons, dead feathered as an old pan. My morning rages for the sun. A trout backsliding under the bridge swallows light through his skin. Grey shears off the river, a ridge of scales, the bladed wind scraping them. It is all reverse increments, days taken in like a consumptive skirts. I'm all for letting out. March, the gear shift of the vernal equinox. Which is lighter, a ton of feathers or a ton of lead? Lead, of course. What's a ton of feathers but a universe of dark stuff squeezed between your fingers? When the rivers rush forward again, a tortured salmon springs, jackknives the waterfall, fins whirring. The moon, fish-eyed, hatches small grey pearls. He's making for a country not his, it has always owned him. There, autumn is brief. Sunlight cascades out of a hard sky, not this spent light, leaden, flat as a fish knife. I'd rather be at the fish houses, the cold already burning, a raw bar matching the machine's clatter, go down, ye blood-red roses. So thank you all very, very much.
You may also be interested to know that Mary's first reading here, we videotaped. I was not here, but it's up on the website now. So if you want to see Mary then and now.
Time is cruel.
I'm gonna take, no, I wouldn't say that. I'm gonna take the privilege of introducing you to ask the first question. So you read some poems about the landscape here and about student spaces and students and teaching. And you also have poems about exile. And I'm wondering, being here, having been here, and then going back, what other, I mean, maybe you could just talk about what the experience did to you. Did it do something to your imagination, being in this different landscape? And did you feel yourself in exile? Did you feel yourself in exile coming home?
Yeah, that's a good, thank you. That's a good question. I'll try to answer it. First of all, about the exile. Interestingly enough, I never feel exiled in America, which is interesting. I can feel, I'm certainly not this close to the East Coast.
Okay.
Let's put it that way, because that is the next parish, but literally the next across the sea, I think. And so many of my family were out here and are still all over the place. In that sense, of course, I don't feel exiled. There are senses of unfamiliarity at times. I think, I never thought about it before, but I realise now that the tone of this book is very different from the tone of my other books. So it probably did have, it certainly had an influence, there's no question about that. And that coincided with a certain period, creatively, of course. Yes, I think everywhere I go gets into my work, that's how I am. And it did have an influence. The teaching experience here was a very, very good one for me. It generally is wherever I am, but this was particularly good because I had, to be honest, some fantastic students who were a pleasure and a joy to teach because they went along so well with me. I would say there's a big possibility that, particularly in tone, because of being that far away for that long, I'm always away whenever I can, but never for that long normally, did probably give me a distance that was very, very useful. Now that I'm thinking about it for the first time. Certainly, spending this much time, I'm used to going to, say, New York City or somewhere like that where it's just a buzz, great. But it's more contemplative here. It's a longer, different stretch. And tone is the most thing that comes to me because I had such a challenge to write about this landscape. And I knew I wasn't going to write about it for the sake of it. I had no interest in doing that. So there had to be a chime somewhere. And of course you cannot write about the American landscape, this kind of landscape here, in the same tone as the Irish landscape or a Spanish landscape. The heat, it has to be cool. And I began reading Bishop, and maybe that's my allusion to Bishop there. Her tone is much cooler, of course. The Lowlands is very hot. But this is not a place to write about in a hot tone. Or maybe it is, but I didn't go to the right place. If I was in Philly, maybe. Does that make any sense? Just thinking about this off the top of my head. So.
And I neglected to say that you spent, how many years, 9 years in Portugal?
I did 8 years.
8 years in Portugal.
Yeah.
And so, that's a hot place in comparison.
And my first book was almost entirely based there, although all written in Ireland. I almost never write about the place. Succeed in writing about the place when I'm there. It's afterwards that I have the time, something about moving between places seems to help.
And what is that in terms of place?
They say the view is always clearer from the far shore. I think it is, probably. It takes the immediacy. I make the notes at the time, and they may not even change very much. In fact, I was looking at some of my old notes before I came over from here. I had almost nothing finished, but I had a lot of notes, actually, like more than I thought. That's how I work. Other people don't, of course. Yes?
Hi, Mary. You partially answered my question when you said you kept notes. I was wondering if you actually keep a journal when you're away from home.
I keep a notebook anyway, I wouldn't even call it a journal, almost at all times. Yeah. Sometimes there's almost nothing in it.
Right.
To tell you the truth, I rarely go back to those. It's my working notebooks that I tend to go back to for poems. So you might ask, why do I keep them? I don't know, it's become a habit, you know. But I do, I always go back to the actual working notebook, which I always have with me when I'm anywhere for any length of time. And I'm not just traveling. And which, so that's where the notes for the poems would have been, mostly. Yes, hello, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Carrie.
I just wanted to ask, how did you initially get into writing poetry?
From song. Well, no, I started in Irish, which is not my first language, because I was asked to make translations of Irish poems by an English teacher who was American. Her name was Bettina Ferry. I've never seen her since. That was before email. We gave her an appalling time at Villanova. She had no clue as to what to do either with the nuns in the convent school, nor they with her. I think she's a bit of a hippie. And I have been told I loved her because she talked about literature in a way that I'd never heard her talked about before. And obviously I must have been talking to her about liking Irish poems, and she kept asking me. And then she said, you have to do some translations, and I went, whoa. And she made me. I'm sure they were appalling, but it was a big lesson. Later, I'd say I started writing ballads. Started writing very traditional poems. The desire to write, the permission to write came out of Irish, and still sometimes does, to tell you the truth. If I feel I have no permission, I will often write something in Irish, which I will not publish because it's not good enough for me. But it will give me the permission. I then stopped. I went to a workshop with a man called James Liddy, the wonderful James Liddy, Lord mercy on him, and whom I had, thank God, had the chance to thank many years later, because I was too arrogant and gauche and young to thank him at the time, because he encouraged me, and I felt I wasn't worth that, and I was very, awkward. And so that was the only workshop I ever went to as my final year. And then I didn't write for about until I was in my 30s. So, and then I thought, I'll give it a year and see what happens, because I felt I had to. And I've been trying, attempting to keep going ever since. That's
Fortunately for us.
I was perfectly prepared for it not to continue. I felt if I didn't do anything that I could stand over, I'd give it up. But I knew I had to give it a go. Okay.
Last question. Okay, well, we have a couple of books if anybody wants to buy them.